everybody, it's MultiGreenThunder, and joining me today is my co-host,
MasterOfTheLemons, and you introduced me as if I'm like, as if I'm not like, we're not on equal playing.
That's why I threw in co-host.
Like
I realized I was going in a really bad direction. So
I'm joining you here today, like the secondary guy. Like, oh, he's my guest for the day.
He'll be number 2 on my top 10 co-host list.
Who's number 1?
Who's number 1? Well, you'll have to wait for that episode next week.
Oh my God! Don't tune in for that. Even if we make it, don't tune in for that. So, basically, what we're doing today is our top 5 favorite character designs in the television series. Like all the characters, any road vehicle, engine, piece of rolling stock. I guess you could choose a human if you wanted.
Can I include the render of Sir Loham hat? Can I do that?
It's weird that you would put that on and not the Fat Controller.
Well, I think, I was like, the Fat Controller model, I was like, it's good, but it needs more stash.
Yeah, I agree.
And they delivered, and I was really, really happy with it, which is why that is the best season of that era.
Clive Spong, I think, agreed with you. But anyway, so without further ado, Multi, do you want to give your 5th favorite character design in the TV series?
All right. So, my 5th favorite character design in the TV series is actually one of a twin. I had to choose between one or the other, but they're very similar. It's actually Splatter, or, Splatter and Dodge, but it's Splatter. I love the weathered type look he has.
Yeah.
And how often do you see a purple engine? Let alone one people actually like.
Yeah, honestly, that never happens. I love it's like this bluish purple. The color's gorgeous. Like, I just love how he looks. And he's got this kind of, it feels like he's kind of been dusted over, where he's just got, like, the weathering you talk about, I know what you mean, where it's like he feels like kind of dusty all over.
And Magic Railroad was kind of that part where, when they really started cleaning up the models a bit, too. Like, they weren't as, glossy looking. Like, they looked a little more toy-like, where it's interesting to see an actual engine get a lot of a weathered treatment. Because outside of the Scarlet Railway, you don't see that as much with the standard gauge engines, like them with the more dirty aesthetic.
I really like how all the other Gronks have ladders on the sides of the front. But Splatter and Dodge, they don't have those, do they?
On the front?
Well, on the... near the front, on the sides. They've got ladders going up either side. Diesel has
no, they just have steps.
I mean, I always really liked that, because it's like, if they had ladders, they would look totally different. And you would look at them and you'd be like, that's weird, I don't remember them looking that way. And then realize, oh wait, they don't have them. It's the type of thing that you don't
I didn't realize that a lot of the Gronks were actually, the same class. I didn't know that Airy Bird... I don't think I knew that Airy Bird and Diesel were all, the same class, and I feel kind of dumb now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just convenience, I mean, I'm sure they just, had this same mold of Diesel, and were like, okay, let's use this. It's easy, it's the smallest thing we have, let's just use it. And that's probably how they were thinking. It's like, I do love just how Splatter looks in general. It's a really cool look. It's a big part of just... the engines in Magic Railroad look so neat, and I love their appearance.
And I like how Dodge has kind of a military aesthetic kind of going on for him. But what's your number 5, man?
My number 5 is... So I really struggled with this one. It's the one I'm iffiest on my list.
Same with mine.
One more thing I want to ask you before I say my number 5. Does that make Dodge your number 6?
No, he wasn't, but you've ruined my list. Thank you.
So you're
my number 6 was actually Thumper for his honorable mention. I love how the thing spins and he's crazy different looking for everything else. But no, now I guess it's Dodge now.
So it's Splatter's number 5, and then Dodge is number
He's 5.5.
All right, there we go. And so basically, my number 5 is Smudger. I really, and Rheneas isn't anywhere near the top for me for some reason. I still love how he looks, but, he didn't make it on here at all. But Smudger, I've always had this huge interest in Smudger. I've always really loved Smudger. When I was younger, I never saw Grandpuff. I never saw Smudger. I had the Earl model. And I
never had Rescue to the Rescue on VHS, nor did I rent it, so I never saw the episode.
Yeah, I only saw it, the first time I saw Smudger was on a Wikipedia page for Smudger or for Grandpuff or something in 2008 or something. Before then, growing up, I didn't actually see. I didn't actually see Smudger in the show. I didn't know he was in the show. A few years back when Wooden Railway released their merchandise exclusive characters, I was kind of like already used to that, because there's a lot of characters I didn't see growing up because I didn't have the right VHSs that I thought were merchandise exclusive characters. I thought that about 16, I thought that about Smudger, I thought that about a few others. And Smudger, I was obsessed with. I wanted to know his story. And the only way I could even learn of it was through that little character card, the blue ones that are like printed
horizontally. Well, you were in for a traumatized childhood.
And, well, it explained his situation.
I'm so excited to see what type of happy adventure Smudger's gonna go on. It must have a happy ending, right? Well, it does have a happy ending, said Thomas, but not for Smudger.
I honestly, I don't remember. I think my mom might have fudged the story a little bit just to not freak me out when I was younger. She did the same thing with Godred when reading the Railway series, where she was like, she had some sort of like...
Godred went to live on a farm.
Yeah, he went to live on a farm. That's what a nice place for a train. But yeah, Smudger I think is awesome. It's weird, but I always really have been attached to that character card picture with the black dome. I always really loved that, and I was like, when did he get his dome painted black? Because it's gold on the Ertl model, and I wanted to know what the timeline was there. And of course, it's just a mistake, right? But when you're younger, you think everything has a purpose there. And so, you look at it, and it gets you excited, and I just love Smudger in general. I love how, he's got this really cool green color, he's got this black lining, just in general, he's a really neat character to look at. And maybe because he was such a mystery to me when I was younger, and I only had so little to go off of, as he was such an obscure character that I hadn't even seen the episode for. He's stuck with me to this day as a really intriguing, interesting character to look at, even though he's not that different from Rheneas. Also, I really like his face. It's really cool. By
the way, I want to say, mad props to you for putting Smudger on the list. I'm making that okay symbol thing right now, but you guys cannot see it because this is a radio show. But I think we're going to go ahead and get on to number 4 now.
Yeah. And one more thing. So Multi and I had agreed on something where we basically... I was writing my list and I realized it was literally all characters from the main 11. And I thought that would be kind of boring. I don't want my list to be Gordon, Henry, Duck, James...
Thomas, Percy, Henry, and Gordon!
That would be a little bit... boring, I think. So we just decided, okay, to challenge ourselves, we're not going to choose from the main 11. For those who are interested, my ranking would be something like Gordon, Henry, Duck, James, Boko. That's my 5 favorite character designs, because I pretty strongly correlate them with my favorite characters, and I really like big mainline engines and stuff, so because of that, those are my, kind of my most authentic favorites, but they also miss the point of this whole conversation, so I decided not to include them.
For my top ones, my list actually is almost the same, except 5 and 4 are different. Switch it to where number 5 is Edward and number 4 is Duck. Yeah. But those two are now disqualified from the list.
We wanted to challenge ourselves and get a more interesting conversation by choosing characters that weren't obvious. So.
Wouldn't it be more interested to see, I don't know, Smudger pitted against Hector as opposed to hearing about Thomas and Toby for the 7,000th time?
Yeah, honestly. All right. So,
I don't know if anyone would put Toby on their list outside of Tynes and Taj, but, I mean...
Yeah. All right, so who's going with their number 4 now?
Okay, I'll go do my number 4. Oh, my God. Okay. My number 4, Rheneas/Smudger. I forgot that this was going to be the next one. I actually put them as the same one, but actually it probably would have made more sense to just go with one, being as I did that with Splatter and you just did Smudger. Pretty much everything he said. I would just talk a bit about this thing. I love his side rod. How long it is, it just...
And I've always loved how Rheneas, I associate this more with Rheneas, because when I think of shape, I think of Rheneas. When I think of Smudger, I think more of color, and the fact that he derails, and it's fun to watch, and that sort of... Yeah. The wheelbase is so long, and I think that's what you're picking up on with the side rods, is that, it's just his wheels are so far apart, and it's so neat to look at. He looks so stable, which is...
He's so simple design, but yet controversial statement here. Smudger is the coolest of all the narrow gauge engines. I'm going to say that right now.
I have to just in terms of raw in terms of raw coolness, I'm going to have to agree with you. He's just such a neat. Maybe Bertram, those two are just really neat characters that get you excited. That just they appeal to the childish side of me, where I'm just like, oh, that's exciting, that's cool. It's interesting you lumped Rheneas and Smudger together there, because like they're radically different in design. Like they have different colors, different faces, different like the design.
Yeah, I thought a bit about more of that during this, and like I probably would have been for the best to put them differently. I probably kind of just clump them together. But I guess in retrospect, if you're putting two of the twins in different spots, it probably would have been better to put these two especially different from each other.
Yeah.
But, well, we live and learn, as Gordon says.
So my number 4 is Stanley. From the TV series.
Okay, I thought you were... I was assuming that was what you're referring to, but that had me thinking a second. But, dude, I love the fact that you chose him. Stanley is
He's the coolest. I love the vibe I get off of him, because he's designed specifically... Shiny. He's designed specifically to look bigger and stronger and more powerful than Thomas, and he exudes that vibe, where I look at Stanley, and he's got this long wheelbase, he's this big engine, he's longer than Thomas... He's
so much more gaudy and so much more like what would be the poster for the railway.
Yeah, he looks just so kind of like. I feel like, I feel the same vibe I get off of a human who's wearing like a really nice light colored suit with like a silver tie. It's like really like nice looking. Like he's so smartly dressed.
And he has a silver smoke box.
Yeah, it's the coolest. He just looks cutting edge, like in a weird kind of like 40s way. And I really love that. And I love watching him work, too. When he's pulling something, it's just like... I love engines that have this like kind of big, strong vibe where they feel powerful. They feel like they can really pull a lot. And Stanley just gives me that vibe where I look at him and I'm like, he's a powerful shunter.
And it's such a great color combo, too.
Yeah, it's an awesome color combo. He's like the only engine we have that's like white. So I've always really loved Stanley. From the moment that I first... saw a picture of him when the Great Discovery was announced, I was just like, that's such a cool looking engine. Oh, and his face. I don't know how you justify why his face is that weird shape, but it makes him look stronger. And it makes him look really just neat to look at. Like, he's got this really... He feels just like a really robust design.
He feels like he has good chin going on. I don't know why.
It's like, he just feels robust, right? The whole design of him, the shape of the face... the way he's built, the fact that he's got this big, meaty, saddle tank. The fact that he's got this big, meaty saddle tank. The fact that he's got this big wheelbase, and he looks strong. He looks like a powerful tank engine, and I love that look. It's just so cool.
All right, so are we ready for my number 3?
Yes, we are.
All right, now I know you're all gonna love this one. My number 3 is none other than the girl of the hour herself, Rosie.
Yeah, of course.
You knew this was going to be inevitable on here. I mean, usually one of your favorite characters can always one of your favorite designs, but she's based off a U.S. dock tank, and while it is, I think, definitely a lot more narrow and a little less bulky, much like Thomas's compared to an E2, it's a very natural transition, I feel like, between if you're comparing both these two, their bases. Like, if you were to Thomasify a saddle or a U.S. dock tank, that would pretty much be Rosie if you were going by the same rules of the 80s when they made Thomas's model.
The rules of the 80s were more like they were just basing it on the illustrations, and as the illustrations improved, so did the models. So it's really... True. It would be the same today if they used the same reference material. However, I really agree with what you're saying there, where it's like, we have to take into account the fact that Thomas and a lot of the characters look very different than they would in real life or in the Railway series or whatever. Like, for instance, the whole Stanley being bigger than Thomas thing is a big reason I love Stanley. But, like, Thomas looking like a real E2, his basis is huge. It's a really big engine. And so,
he's so much more fat.
Well, he's more muscular. He's longer and more, he's a more impressive engine. And Stanley is a lot smaller compared to him, so you'd have to scale Stanley up, too, in that context. But Rosie is literally just... I mean, there are a few slight differences. She's a little bit taller, and, she's a little bit, she is kind of cartoonified for Thomas. She doesn't look exactly like real life. However, generally, she is very close. Like, Thomas looks nothing like an E2 in the show, but Rosie looks quite a bit like a dock tank, to the point where you could recognize it.
Despite being another... tank engine, her designs we're used to in the show, she's got a lot of unique attributes. Like, she's got the 3 domes going on. She has, like, a little weird roof piece thing. I don't know why that's on her cap. I don't know what the purpose of that is. I really like the. What would those be on the smoke box? Like steam pipes? Or those what those are called?
Those are for leading steam into the cylinders.
Yeah, I really like the choice. I don't know if it was supposed to come off like feminine hair. I don't know, but it's like I really like the choice here. Like, and the face mask is very.
I get that vibe off of Emily. I don't really get that off of Rosie as much. Her those steam pipes. Are especially because they're on so many different engines and they're so common. They're on Gordon, they're on Henry. But what I really love about Rosie is a lot of the same stuff I love about Stanley. She's very robust. She feels like this big, powerful tank engine because she is. The USA Doc tanks are just such a cool class. They're like
agreed.
They're a lot more like kind of bare bones and designed just to do the job, and so they're a lot more utilitarian the way they're designed. They don't have a lot of fluff. They're the way they're designed. It's for purpose. It's for function, and yet they're very gorgeous because of that. Even though they're gorgeous in a totally different way from something like like a grander express engine, right? They're supposed to be utilitarian and kind of rough around the edges, and that's the point. And I really like that look. And it's really interesting juxtaposing that with Rosie's bright colors, because it's combining those two elements. Kind of hard edges. And just kind of being bulky and very, utilitarian in nature, versus having these bright colors and being cheerful, makes for a character that sticks in your mind and looks really unusual, and I think in a good way. So
that's why we got a great character here.
And also, I love her livery. It's just the colors are really nice, and I like that the sides, because a lot of railways do that thing where they have like a border on the tanks, and then they have like a different color inside that border. And so, Sodor makes its own spin on that and makes it white inside. It's like a very unusual livery. You'd never see it in real life, but I do really like it, and it does abide by the same principles that I think make liveries look neat, even though it's not realistic. It doesn't have to be, because we're not dealing with a real railway. We're dealing with a railway that can decide its own colors, and they've decided for Rosie that's how they paint her.
And we've had a varying bit of designs throughout things, so the lamp and the color change overall. But I think the best one, though, is like her model series debut of all the...
Yeah, no, I really don't care much for the CGI series. She's so pinheaded in the CGI series. Her smoke box is shrunk down so small. And she looks way better in the model series, like way better.
I still like the CGI version, but the model series looks much nicer.
I'm kind of bugged by the CGI version. I don't really care for it much. It's just she looks so different with the smoke box change. So for that reason, I really prefer the model version. And in fact, that leads into my number 3, which is that it's the opposite for the character I'm about to say. I actually prefer the CGI version to the model version, and it's Spencer. I really love Spencer's CGI design. He's cool in the model series, don't get me wrong, especially when they upgrade him to the silver.
Yes! I freaking love that!
I really love that look. However, the reason I like him better in the CGI series is probably by mistake. They adjusted the curvature of his boiler slightly. So he's a little bit more like a real A4, where the boiler kind of has this tapered effect. It kind of curves on top and curves down into the smoke box, and then... Because in the model series...
He does look like he's kind of at an angle a little more in CGI, doesn't he?
Yeah, his front is... And also, something I love is, you look at the model series Spencer, right? And... He looks kind of bald. Like, you look at... most engines, you can see their funnel above their face. You can see that some of their smoke box above their face. Spencer, you can't see it. He's almost always just like very top of him is his face. That's where he ends, at the top. In the CGI series, his face is a little bit smaller. It's on more of a curve on the smoke box.
He looks more like a rich guy with a fancy hairdo.
Yeah, no, that's a lot more like what he looks like, and I really like that. You can always see a little bit of black above the face on the smoke box, which really changes his look, I think. It makes him look cooler. It makes him look neater. And for some engines, the not having anything above the face works. But Spencer, I think, should look a little bit more elegant than that and have more of a curve. His boiler just curves more, smoke box curves more, and just the placement of the face, the size of it, I think looks a lot better because there's black surrounding every area.
I have to agree here as far as design. I mean, of course, my favorite is going to be with the model stuff and the silver stuff, but as far as design goes, the face and the front just looks so much better when you got that little black line at the top. I will agree to that.
He's got, he's still got the silver. The placement of the face is fantastic, and he just overall feels stronger, slicker, and more muscular. So I really love that look, and he's definitely my third.
The second one on my list is, well, who doesn't freaking love this design? It's Diesel 10.
Really?
Yes.
So, I have to admit that my number 2 is also Diesel 10.
Wait, it's not your number 1? I thought it was going to be number 1.
No, it's my number 2. It's,
jeez, all this, I feel like we're insulting Diesel 10 here. Like, I feel like he should be, he's not my number 1, but I feel like he should be number 1. I mean, let's talk about this guy. Not only is this, this epic warship in a Thomasified version, but you have that Hulk and claw.
I know.
The
claw is like
Diesel 10 would be. No, he has this thing at the top that just shows terror, and he's the king of these engines, and you will be running in absolute terror at the mere sight of him.
He's the coolest. He's just such a he's the epitome of designing an overpowered, ridiculously scary villain. It's that's the point. He's like
it's a Hulk and claw up there.
Yeah, he's the closest we have to a Thomas supervillain, where it really is just over the top, and that's the point. He looks so cool and scary. He's so big and menacing.
Diesel 10 is almost the equivalent of you had Thomas where it was in the season 5 era. It was we had what we were working with in the current era of the show. And then you just gave it to someone who didn't even okay, gave it to some action movie guy. It's okay, let's see what I can do here, but I'm going to go with exactly the same stuff. Because all his face and stuff all looks like it came out of that era, which it did, so it makes sense. But he's just so different from everything else. It's like you implemented an action movie in Thomas, and it works. And let's be honest here. How many of us have had things when we were kids of just I never had dreams of Diesel 10 or something like that, like him chasing me or anything like that. But I remember when I was there, just just seeing that scene where he's just sneaking up to Mr. Conductor, and you see him kind of you get a scale from Mr. Conductor. What other character gives you that presence?
It's cool to have a character like that that's just so over the top, scary, and dangerous. So I do love that. And the thing is, without the claw, he would still be kind of neat, but he would be more it's cool that we would have another big mainline Diesel. I love those, but he would have an ugly paint scheme, and it wouldn't be as cool. When you take the claw and put him on him, then the paint scheme ties into the whole motif. Now it's he's this he looks like you mentioned something like military colors with splatter earlier.
Yes.
I think Diesel 10 has military colors. He
is called a warship.
Yeah, it's he's just such a neat it's such a neat design. But yeah, I really love big mainline Diesels. I love how Boko looks. I love how I was gonna put Class 40 as number 5.
I was so tempted, man. I was so tempted.
I was gonna put him as my number 5, and I changed him at the last minute. Class 40 would probably be my 6. He's just so neat. Daisy, not so much, because she carries passengers, and also her running board is so weirdly high, it's kind of gross to look at. It doesn't line up with any platform. And she looks like a monster truck, the way that she's raised up on those wheels. I will say, though, in the CGI series, she's gorgeous. I love that design. They made the face smaller, which I liked, and they actually made her running board lower down, so it made sense. So I love how that looks. She's great in the CGI series.
I don't like things making sense, so I like the model series version better, personally. But, yeah.
So I don't think we need to waste much more time on Diesel 10.
No. We get the point. They know. It's Diesel 10.
Yeah, no, obviously.
Alright, who wants to do their number 1 next? Should I go ahead?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Alright. Time for my number 1. And the only one that can top Diesel 10 for me is one that's probably one of the most unrealistic ones ever in the series. It's Lady. I love the motif.
I thought about Lady. She's a really cool idea, because it's you have this whole magical railroad at your disposal, and I love that it's this kind of elegant, she's got so much power that she doesn't even need to be big. Diesel 10 is kind of compensating, but Lady is just this tiny little engine, and it's juxtaposed with her amazing power and abilities. In a really cool way.
And her design reflects that, too, because she's such a small engine next to Thomas, but they make a lot of interesting choices. They do that thing at the front with where the buffer beam is, kind of make her look a lot wider, and then, this doesn't really go into, her I don't know if it's for elegance, but I just love her cab, how it's like open-ended and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We don't see as much of the tank.
She looks like, I mean, obviously it's TV series of 5, but she looks like she's from like the 1800s. She looks like old. She looks elegant, the way that she's like very outdated in certain ways. She's got these really tiny tanks. She's got this open cab, and the colors, she's all these like royal purples and golds.
Gold! She has gold and purple, and it's such a bizarre mix, but it makes so much sense and works. I'd also like to say how the funnel and the dome, both of them look like a crown.
They do.
The way they kind of widen out.
I never thought about that. I really like that. It's like, it's got this kind of ornate kind of look to it. It's really nice. Yeah, no.
And I gotta say, also, I really like the face they switched to from the prototype type face. Like, it's just so.
The thing is, switching the faces. I think if we had the original one if that's the one they went with, I think we would be a lot more used to it and like it. I think they played it safe by giving her the big eyes. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same thing they do where they design every female character today to have these huge eyes because they're like, okay, well, we want them to look right, and it's like, well. I think she could have worked with the other face. It looks kind of older and wiser, and I feel like Lady would have a lot of knowledge and experience and be wise, because you can't have this much power and not have seen things and done things and be very interesting.
She's seen things.
Yeah, and so because of that, I think like an older looking face could work for her, and the wide eyes almost... The earlier face almost fits her better in a way to like what I would expect from her. However, I understand that people might like the newer one too. Like I'm used to the newer one, so I prefer that. However, I don't think I would have hated it if we had the original one either. I think they both could have worked for her.
But yeah, design-wise, it had the black running board. Like, I could gush about this model for like an hour. And dual headlamps. I really love that.
Well, every engine should have those sometimes. So it's like.
Well, you see, she's superior, so she gets them.
Well, everyone gets them. Gordon gets them when he pulls the right train. I mean, it's... the show doesn't understand headlamps. I'll leave it at that. They just put one on everyone.
There's no sign of a tail lamp.
No.
David, how about we go to Lemmy's number 1 before we go on a 5-minute rant on the headlamps? If you want a bonus episode on that, let us know.
So my number 1 is... Flying Scotsman. That is... Ooh. He looks so cool. This could have gone so wrong, right? No disrespect to anybody, but it is a massive pet peeve of mine when somebody does a video, like in trains or something, and we're really just with any brand or anything, and they don't make Gordon and Scotsman look the same. Like, Gordon and Scotsman have radically different shapes. Like, they'll use a TV series Gordon and, like, a Wild Nor'Wester Scotsman, and they just aren't the same shape. And I was really worried that if the fans do that, well, like, of course the show isn't gonna avoid doing that.
Not to mention, a lot of us are used to the wooden railway model, the OG one that looks nothing like Flying Scotsman.
Unpopular opinion, but the old style Scotsman, both wooden railway Scotsmans are atrocious. They're awful models. And I know we all like Scotsman, and that's our representation of him, so we're like, cool, what a cool model, but it looks nothing like him. It doesn't look anything like Gordon. It's awful. It bastardizes the A3s. So there's my unpopular opinion of the day.
Hot take! Might be too hot for some of y'all!
So fans do that a lot, right? And I understand why. Like, it's, if you're, just tell your story, and if if you use a model that, if Gordon and Scotsman don't look the same, there's a lot of people who just don't care. I get that. But for me, personally, I could not stand it if Gordon and Scotsman didn't look like brothers, because they're meant to be brothers. And when they brought Scotsman into the Great Race, he looked perfect. Like, not perfect. He has a bunch of little things that I can point out. Like, obviously, the Fowler tender lining on the corridor tenders, and, like, his cylinders are a different color from his body, and, all the other stuff. But it's like his shape. They nailed it. He looks like Gordon, but like an A3. Like, he's got the subtle differences that are necessary in that universe. They acknowledged, hey, the TV series took the Flying Scotsman's class and they made it look weird. You know, Gordon is really big and bulky and fat looking in the TV series. He's very unusual compared to his basis. And rather than trying to correct that with Scotsman, they realized that that is the TV series style for Gordon and reflected it in Scotsman. And that's so much better because he looks right. He looks like he belongs. And we get a TV series Scotsman, finally, after years and years of wanting that. It's so
after
cool that we got one.
After seeing Tender Engines and just seeing the tenders, we want to see the rest of it.
They corrected that. That was such a bastardization of... Am I allowed to say that? Is that like a harsh... Because that's like an academic word, but like it's...
What we need to do is we need to have like... we need to have like Thomas censor sounds, like his whistle every time.
It's like not a swear, though. It's just an academic word. It's like... Alright, but basically...
Okay, yeah, if anyone's offended, academic. There you go.
But anyway, so Scotsman just looks so cool. I love his color. I don't know what era he's supposed to be representing. It's all over the place. It looks like they kind of tried to put him in apple green, but then like it looks like his body is shaped more like the BR days with the funnel and like, you know, other things. So and the smoke deflectors, of course. So I'm not sure what they were going for there. He looks like an amalgamation of all the different eras. However, I still adore him. The Flying Scotsman is such a cool character. He's like the icon of steam in the world. He's the coolest character.
It's all in the eyebrows.
And he's like, he shows up. I love the eyebrows too. It's like he's got this just the perfect face for the Flying Scotsman. He looks perfect. He looks just, I get this celebrity vibe off of him when he shows up. You know, just trailing in with the two tenders and just the
smoke deflectors. He seems like a huge deal.
I know.
One thing, it's like, it's such a victory too, to like, it was, of all the characters that get right in this show, this is the most iconic British steam engine after Thomas.
I know.
The fact that they got it right is it's kind of a victory.
Yeah, it means so much. It's so cool. Like, because they could have messed him up so easily. And I know they got
They've wanted him for so long, and they nail it.
Yeah, like, and I know they got a few little things wrong, like the number of wheels on the tenders and whatever. But, like, the main things, the body, the size of the smoke box and the boiler, size of the face, they gave him, this is a tangent, but they gave him an awesome voice, too. He sounds perfect.
Agreed.
It's literally perfect.
Definitely.
Like, they literally nailed him. And Gordon is my favorite character, so getting his brother right, and I believe his class and his brothers to be an integral part to his story, the fact that they got Scotsman right meant the world to me. It was so cool. It makes The Great Race one of my favorite movies, just having Scotsman there. It meant so much. And it was so cool to see him in the show. And he was him. He was right. His personality was right. His voice was right. His look was right. He felt like the Flying Scotsman. I can ignore the fact that he's for some reason operating on what would be the LMS, pulling into Vickerstown Station. Look, that's a disgusting concept, but I'm willing to accept it because I get to see Scotsman in the show, and he looks amazing. So he's definitely my favorite there, just the coolest. The Flying Scotsman is the coolest engine ever built. And the fact that we got to see him in the show, and they did a good job of representing him, of course he's going to be my favorite. So I adore him.
This is so fitting that this list pretty much ends with us both gushing about our favorite model
you can tell we're being honest. So yeah, you know, I'm really, I'm pretty confident in my choices there. My list would look very different if I included the main 11, but I felt like that wouldn't have been as good of a discussion.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of mileage after what we were talking about. And also, I'd like to say, down in the comments below, I would love to hear, what are your top 5 favorite designs in the series? You don't have to use the role we had.
And also, please make suggestions for different topics for our episodes, because we really struggle to come up with ideas.
We are not just saying that, like, we actually could use those.
Yeah, it would be so much quicker. All right. Oh. So I think we've covered our favorite designs. I think we're good.
Yeah. All right. I think we are done. So thank you all for joining us. This has been Thomas Top 10s on TWR Community Radio. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in future episodes. This has been MultiGreenThunder saying thank you for watching, and
Master of the Lemons, thank you for watching, and see you next time.
Bye.